Alrighty, so welcome to this week's CERC HQ. We're going to be going over this week's progress in terms of basically what we've done for civilian evacuation, map progress, civilian militia. There's a lot to go over. So I'm the game director. I think Durvar is running a little bit late, so he'll be the podcast host whenever he pops in. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to speed run the light topics, and then we're going to get into civilian evac to wrap it up, because then that will cue right into the Q&A. Oh, the stream's not working? What's it doing? Can you guys see my screen? Can you guys hear me? It's loading. Can anyone else see it? Hear you not see? Okay, hold on. Let me stop it and start it again. Oh, that's weird. Hold on. Discord's like completely bugging out on me right now, so give me a second. Isn't this the perfect time for it to malfunction? Let me just crash it. It's like in an infinite loop for some reason of streaming. So crash. One sec, YouTube. Having technical difficulties on Discord. Discord decided to screw up my share screen. So let's try that again. So share. Okay, can you guys see it now? Okay, groovy. All right, back to our scheduled program. So, right off the rip, let me bring up my live showcase. And we're going to really quickly walk through some of the progress we've had on Dead Passage, which is basically what we're calling Angel Island now. So, when that loads up in a second, I will show that. And just to fill the air while it loads, we've also been going through and tightening up the pathfinding and the navigation issues in Calypso and Iron Wake. From talking to Ephraim the other day, I think his last assessment was saying that there are a couple of minor issues here and there that he's still ironing out, and some like small performance issues that he's trying to improve. Like there are some older assets from Legacy that were just kind of merged weird, and they just don't physics correctly when you hit them with the car. So like, let's see if I can find an example. Is like, let's see. Of course, I'm not going to have the luck to do it here, but okay, well, if I see it, I'll point one out because I don't want to spend too much time on it. But he's been kind of going through and just kind of cleaning up the valleys, making them work better for vehicles, making sure that they are set up correctly for the juggernauts and all the other bigger enemy types that are coming into the game. You'll see a lot of changes in terms of just how the mountains are set up and the verticality. We've been going back and forth about increasing the size of it slightly. We're going to see how the first playtests go going into this week. And then we'll just kind of see how it feels and adjust accordingly. Because his and my primary concern is the lack of population on Angel Island. Like realistically, you need at least 20,000 people, 10,000 people to have a meaningful gameplay. I feel like, at least. Because otherwise it's a very like desolate place. I know that in the past he's wanted to widen it out a little bit to make it a little bit thicker horizontally and add another quarter. So that way he could play with more campgrounds and more like actual like offshoot areas that are like weenies to hide stuff and nook and crannies. We've been testing this map and like, you know, a couple of like secret little builds here and there and just trying to eradicate and look into the issues that we run into. So it's been going pretty well there. The map is playable. It's just a matter of just giving him probably another couple of days going into Monday, Tuesday to get it to the point where we feel confident enough putting it out on experimental. So I would expect this map around Monday, Tuesday, I would say. Like here, let me play into the map so you guys can get an idea of the play area. It's one thing to see it in like the perspective of like the FOV in the editor. It's another thing to see it with like the actual RTS perspective because of different FOV, the mini maps there, so you can get a better gauge of what's going on. So you can see right here. Hello.
They've done a really good job on the map.
Oh yeah. Like they've been basically kind of like powering through it, or Efren has, to basically like, you know, get it all situated. And you can see that I also went through with him and increase the height of these little zone cards, because in some of the newer maps, they were too low to the ground, and I felt like they would block your units and were just kind of in the way. So we increased the height of these cards by about 5,000 UU. So you'll also notice that some of the newer maps have higher zone cards here. And you can see the populations, but it's very low. I think altogether it's like under 10,000. And that's not, I don't think that's going to be enough for meaningful gameplay. But I mean, this could just be one of those maps where it's like a quick rapid fire map where you don't like play for hours on end. It could just be, it's just an hour map. It's a 2-hour map. Because some of the other ones can go on for 3-4 hours. Like Half Moon Bay could definitely go on for a long time, especially if it spirals out of control and you have a breakthrough. But like you figure, it just gives them more like, things to work with. And then the other thing that we're working on right now is that this map is distinctly different than the other ones, and it brings another issue to bear, is that these lines aren't very readable through geometry. So right now, that's something that I'm getting with Dimitri and Efren with from a technical standpoint of, do we want to raise them, or do we want to work on some kind of custom render depth or custom material that will allow them to be seeable or visible through geometry? I think we're just going to end up raising it for the sake of simplicity. But this is something that I'm going to have to regroup with him going on the Monday, because I know this is one of the things that was on my list of like, it was unacceptable to release it yet, because like I was trying to play the map by myself a couple of days ago, and I was like, what the fuck? Where do the zones begin and end? Like, you're over here, like, what is the border? And then you turn around and it's like, it's just shitty. So like you figure it's one of those things where it's like the designer gets so like amped up on like the visuals, and they're like, okay, like it looks nice. Now we got to make sure it's totally readable and playable at all times. So that's something that they're going to be working on going into Monday. And that's also one of the things that are on my list as like a hard stop of like opening it up to more people. Because again, it's just kind of like, eh. And like what Moro asked, this map is purely standalone for the time being until we can get to a point of doing some more AI work, so we can open up and make this area playable on the bigger map. Because the infected have no mechanism of getting across the water right now, so there'd be no point to releasing it. You'd go to Angel Island and just hide there. It's just boring. So you figure as it stands right now, our compromise while we're waiting to get through civilian evacuation was to basically put these out as standalone maps, so you can play it, you can have some new experiences, and just kind of plan a little bit for like when it all opens up. Because all of these maps, well, rather Angel Island and Treasure Island and the Bay Area map are like amalgamation of like just, well, making all one big super map. Anyhow, that's this map going on here. And then really quickly, what I wanted to show was Iron Wake. And then we're going to move on to the next topic, which is, let me see. We'll talk about the balancing, actually, that Hawkins has been doing.
Go balancing.
Yep. Okay, so that's loaded in. So this map, once it loads, got a new pier for just generally when we get to civilian evacuation. So that way it's another way for the boat to dock. And then you have the beach area, so the LCACs and all that are going to be able to get up on there. These back areas are done, realistically. Like, he has to just go through and do some car passes, because those are some of the assets placements that got lost in Legacy, because of the way that we place those assets changed. But I showed this briefly last week, but these areas are now like functionally done. And it's just a matter of like, he's going through and he's doing like the small little detail passes of like the cars and the car crashes and the miscellaneous stuff. Because like from a skeleton standpoint, this map is done. And from my understanding of just seeing the bug reports and everything else, this map is doing really well in terms of basically its overall stability and replayability. It's just a matter of when we get the civilian evacuation, seeing what needs to be changed here and there for populations, because I mentioned this before on the Steam forums. But you're gonna, and I think I also mentioned it on Discord, is that you're going to see some of the zones as populations being moved around, adjusted, when it has more of a greater impact on terms of their ability to bring stuff to bear, essentially, in terms of like, oh, well, you can curve stomp them in the beginning. It will affect how many infected they can send out. Because I know for some of the earlier builds, some of our moderators were playing and some of the playtesters were playing, they were like, martial law isn't doing much. Yeah, because it's not connected to anything yet. It's superficial. All it does is just lower the tick rate. But the tick rate or the infected population is not directly doing anything until later in the week when we connect that directly to their ability to build units. That's one of the last things that we're doing going into next week before we like give it out to everyone to play is tie that in, basically. So that's one of the other systems that we're going to be working on. So like here, if I spawn into this, no, not this map. For the sake of time, we need to keep this concise. So we will go to, hold on. Let me go to the pandemic top map. And then, there we go. And then while that loads up, I am going to bring up the other thing that Michael's been working on. Hold on. Copy link. And then open up Edge. Paste that in there. So this is the, oh, get out of here, ad block. You're adopted. So this is basically the final trooper for essentially the security guard that you could hire in your civilian evacuation camp. A couple weeks ago, I talked about how that you're going to have 5 divisions or 5 wings. And one of the things that I talked about, and I've been, basically I've talked to a lot of people that played the old legacy mechanics. And the biggest thing is like, they don't want to babysit the security. They don't want to use their population for security in the zone. So my solution to that with the second version of civilian evacuation with the rebuild was making it to where you hire these guys, you arm them with weapons, and then they're the equivalent of a guard in a guard tower, but they're autonomous. You have no direct control over them, similar to the buses. And they essentially just go around and they're registered that if anything within their area of domain comes under attack, they know about it. It's logged into a task list, and then they assess and attack those locations based off of priority of like whichever area is coming under the most attack. So it'll be some kind of aggregate or some kind of like average system. So that way, if like your entire base comes under attack for a civilian evacuation camp, odds are you'll see them break up into like 3 there, 3 there, 4 there, 2 there. And it comes down to however many you hire. You'll get 20 guys that you can hire as like your staff at your civilian evacuation sites. And then it's up to you how you use those 20 slots in terms of like if you're on the front line or if you're handling like more infected people, and you're having more infected events, then you're going to want to invest more on like your security and your euthanization and your DNA, and maybe not as much about like your efficiency on how quickly you're evacuating people kind of deal. Because you're more so just trying to like curve out the infection before it infects more people essentially. So this is the beauty that Michael's been working on. As it stands right now, there's one more mesh that he's working on right now, which is the scientist version, which is basically it's just going to be like a dumbed down, simplified version of your scientist, visually distinct so that they stand apart. And that way it would make sense like, oh, he's not armed. He's just a lowly grunt that's just kind of scanning people, checking them and assessing them. And those are the ones that you're going to be assigning to like the non-security roles. Those are like your new mesh. Those are the new meshes that are going to be like manning all your stations. Essentially, I don't have anything to show on that yet. He just finished this week around like Thursday, Friday, and he just started on the scientists. So you figure ideally we'll have something to show next Saturday for the scientist mesh. Let's see, what else do I have here? Okay.
I will say this new civilian stuff is going to be really fun.
Oh yeah, no. The fun part is like, and we're going to go into this a little bit briefly here, is that like we've been working on, because like you figure it's one thing to do it in the single player, but we've been working on like all the systems so that when we do the first build, we want everything to work on co-op in the first go. So it's not like, oh, you have to play this new mechanic in this new system by yourself for a couple of days or a week. No. So when I announce that it's out on experimental, that means that you'll be able to play. You'll probably have some issues with saving and loading because it's just going to be a thing for a couple of days. But you'll be able to jump in with your friends and everyone can run their own camps, essentially. So like how you run your camp can be distinctly different than how I run it and how someone else might run it. And then you get the clash of ideas of like, can you stop killing people? Because you're fucking us up, you know, kind of deal. Because again, I'm going to go into this in a second where like one of the things that I was looking into this week, and I mentioned this last week when I was like working on the civilian evacuation and like the euthanization and the condemning and the purging, was like there has to be consequences for being an asshole. Like you can't just go around the zone and start just purging everyone and not expect there to be consequences. So one of the consequences that I set out to do this week was militia. Civilian militia are basically units that are a precursor to Pierce, Natalie, and dynamic civilian groups. So they kind of like set the foundation of having alliances and having enemies per se, that they all hate each other, or if there's some kind of like mishmash here and there. Because some of the issues that kind of like fucked us over this week was like the alliance system. On paper, we programmed it and it seemed like it was going to work. And then when I put in the civilian mobs, CERC wouldn't stop shooting them. Or they would not shoot them, and then the civilian mobs would run up to a CERC soldier and punch him in the face. Even though they were allied to each other. It was our first like allied unit in the entire game. So it was like, okay, what's going on here? So we had to fix that, which is why you saw us kind of like posting a little bit about that earlier in the week. Well, we were like around like Wednesday, Thursday, we were like, okay, like there's some really bad issues going on with like diplomacy. Because like they're not understanding fully, hey, I'm on that guy's team. Maybe I shouldn't go up to him and punch him in the face. Because you can see like right now, we have like the mobs working right now and nobody's trying to shoot them. And they get along and everything. But earlier in the week, we had some issues because they just, like half of their faction manager was like, you're allied to me, we're good. But then there was an aspect of the fog of war on the line of sight grid system that was like, I must shoot you. So it was kind of awkward. So we got that figured out. And you can see like when you highlight them, they show as allies. And we got the basic mob in. And everyone's just kind of like randomly generated. So we put like a seed system in. So then that way, as we basically are essentially like putting in more variations, we can like, you know, have some diversity of like, oh, it's gonna try and randomize it as much as possible. Because that was one of the other things that I set out to do this week. Oh, the system just killed them because they thought they were stuck because they don't have a goal. So that's more of a debug thing. Is it like it thinks they got stuck because there's never a situation where you would just plop in a group like this and then just not have them have some kind of order or initiative or thing, whatever. So we keep it on slow-mo so the system doesn't kill them again. But it's a redundancy. But essentially, what am I saying? So we're going to be piping in more variations over the next like month or two alongside like all the other initiatives, because Michael's utmost priority right now is just getting that scientist done. And then his thing is like weapon animations, visual polish, a little bit of icing on the cake here and there, and just kind of getting everything to a point where everything's solidified for Pierce and Natalie in the next like month or two. So, you know, he's finally getting to a point where like we got these new animations in for like the civilians, and they have their idols, and they have their runs, and they have their walks. So that's all groovy. That's working. I can't issue their move orders anymore. Like last week, we finally turned that off because they're a neutral unit. And then you can see Dimitri did his thing by just kind of generating a civilian mob picture here. So we're just kind of going in and just putting in the window dressing and just setting the table. Now, the interesting part about these guys is that they're the first unit that is a true mob per se. So in Legacy, we did this weird thing where when we return people, we would turn them and tear them off. But the problem was 9 out of 10 times, the game, the engine, the performance was not going to work in terms of basically doing mass conversion events for 10 mobs that represent 100 plus people. So we were like, okay, that was kind of shit, because in Legacy, we just mass kill them. If you had an infection event where like a mob got turned and the infection population was too high, it would just kill them in place in the sake of performance. So what I said about doing this time was making it to where the mob turns as a whole and they just get a damage multiplier based off of the amount of melee damage they do, based off of the amount of people that are alive. So their base is melee. If this group were to turn with 10 people, they do like 400, 500 damage. So they basically all just kind of cleave and hit you, and you die instantly, basically. And the idea is like, watch, if I turn them, these. So if I turn them, well, they got shot almost immediately. So I'd have to basically turn everyone on. Let me just do that. So don't shoot. Don't shoot. Oh, wait, you know what? I'm going to have to spawn in again. Yeah, I didn't realize they were going to, like, wreck them. So let's do that. Let's do that. And then let's turn that. So you figure they'll turn. And then the idea is that you figure they kind of move as one big group. So we kind of generalize it a little bit over Legacy, where it was just, like, really super crazy in terms of how we did it. The only thing I would say is that we need to test it more, because you can see there's already a bug going on right now where it's like, it's our first mob unit per se. It's like more of a company of heroes type thing where they kind of like move together as a group, and it looks like there's something going on wrong with their pathfinding. Yeah, it definitely is. So I don't know what's going on there. That's interesting. We're going to have to look into that because that's new. But let's see. I wonder if oh yeah, I just crashed it. Yep, I just crashed it. So fun. Again, it's still kind of raw. So these are just kind of like early mechanics. But let me load that back up so I can basically continue my demonstration. Because that was one of the last things I was working on, was getting the mob conversion in and getting it to where they would function, and then setting up their damage so that it scales based off of the amount alive. So like Hawkins or Michael might set their base melee damage as 500, but then over time it scales down based off of the amount like still up. So like if I were to place in another mob, and I'll put them right there, and then I were to do this, let me see, I'm gonna risk it one more time. I'm generally just curious what happened there. You can see everyone wants to shoot. Oh, come on. That's the other thing, is I did set it up. They work the same way as the bird system. And this is kind of the thing you do in game design, is you kind of build one system and it's incremental to other systems later on. So the birds introduced a system that is basically like percent of health. It dictates different states of the base character. See, now he's working. What the frack? Oh yeah, but he's doing his, let me see something. That is very interesting. Okay, so that might have been something that Derek might have changed and he didn't realize it was going to break that. I'm not sure. Okay, well, we're going to have to look into that. Another reason why it's not ready yet. Can we shoot him, please? Bye-bye. So you figure that was another thing that I did this week, was I set up the actual damage model and set it up to where, like, as you take away their health a percent, it makes it to where, like, they dynamically lose people in the mob, similar to how the birds work. So the bird set the foundation of that system, and I programmed it in a way where it was going to directly lead into having mobbed units, because realistically, the civilian mobs are programmed in a way where they're modular. So we can expand that functionality to any unit in the future, because we do have aspirations of adding a spotter to the sniper. So the health component is a special mob health component, and that way you can set the mob count. Or rather, in this case, it could be 2 and be a spotter. And that way they work together, and you can generalize the health to a certain degree, kind of like what Company of Heroes does. So we wanted to set that foundation up just so it gave us some flexibility from a design standpoint to be able to try and experiment with different unit types and be able to like do different ideas in the future, like the birds, like the mobs, and potentially with the sniper spotter later down the line. So that kind of wraps up for the mob itself. The other thing I'm going to show is that I fucked this up last week, is that when I did the condemn, I like hadn't played Legacy in so long that I had forgotten that the condemn is not when the building is empty. The condemn is a permanent state of being. So I fucked that up, because like you figure the problem is that when you condemned a building and the population reached 0, it would uncondemn itself. So that was one of the things that I fixed this week. Because like the idea of condemning, and I'm going to show you a case example of why you'd want to condemn when civilian evacuation comes around, especially if you have people that are more trigger happy, whether it be operators or the RTS players or whatever, they're going to get you fucking killed. And why are they going to get you killed? Because of this system. So if I purge this, and I'm going to show you guys the other system that ate up a lot of my time this week, but boy, is it cool. So I'm going to start
Every
purging.
system you do is cool.
Oh, Lord. So I'm going to start purging, and you're going to notice that that bar is going to start ticking hard. Now, that number I have to get with Leon. It's basically like he had to work a couple of his day job hours this week. So when he is free this week, I need to get with him, and we need to iron out a better plan from a balance standpoint. Because right now it functionally works, but it's like you can see that's a lot of reputation loss for only killing probably 100, 200 people. I think that it's more reasonable to start expecting militias and uprisings after you kill 2,000 to 3,000 people, and then not have it to where every tick actually infects your reputation. There's some information that just doesn't get leaked out. So what I'm going to do is let me turn on the debug, and you're going to notice that there are some militiamen that have gotten really mad in this building. They've grabbed some guns, and they're basically attacking this wall over here. And after they finish attacking this wall, they're going to group up and lay an assault to my units over here. And this is going to directly tie into basically like, think of it as like the Total War Rebels is the idea, where like they're basically the consequence of not actually like trying to maintain some level of stability and to like protect civilians. So you'll get these guys when your reputation drops below 80%. There's a chance of getting a small group. And then once you get below 60, a medium. And then once you get below 40, a large. And the lower your reputation gets, the greater the chance and the larger of intensity they're going to mount to kill you. So, and these guys hate everyone. They'll attack the infected. They'll attack you. And the idea is they'll just do a quick little hit and run attack, and then they'll basically just despawn. So they're there just to basically add like a basic consequence of just being a dick. So you can see in this instance, they're trying to destroy this wall. And you can see also, I kind of layered in some of the animations Michael's still working on. So some of them are like the MP5. That was supposed to be an operator-only gun, but I broke his rule, and I ended up giving it to like the militia because who doesn't love the MP5? So he has to go in and fix that. But you're going to notice that in the early parts of the militia being spawning, they're going to have weaker weapons. Like they're going to have pistols. They're going to have some MP5s. And then the mid-tiers, they'll start to get M4s. They'll start to get like an M101. And then eventually in the late tier, they'll get RPGs. And the RPGs will be basically their counter towards your armor. So right now they're trying to destroy that. I'm just going to destroy that for the sake of time. And then you can see that they're going to move up and they're going to try and assault the base. But you'll also see how they work is they spawn out of the doorways of all the buildings that still have occupancy. So let's say I kill these guys. Okay, they're all dead. Let's see if anyone's still alive and hiding. No, they aren't. So a couple of seconds from now, there's a chance that a group is going to probably spawn from here. So I'm going to rescind the order just so I can demonstrate this. But you're going to see that basically, I would say I have it set like really low. I think they try and launch an attack every 10 to 20 seconds just so I can test and make sure the systems were functioning. So let me see. Are we going to get another group? Let me just zoom out. Because Chelsea's over there minding her own business. Oh, there they are. So you can figure they mounted another group. They came out of that building, and they're trying to basically attack. And then you can see there's another group coming around the back and hitting that side. So they're going to basically just do their thing and try and push up, take over the turret. Take out the turret, move up, get gunned down. And the idea is that eventually you're going to get like a regular rebellion of units that are trying to lay siege to your evacuation centers, to your outposts, to your base. Anything is fair game. If you're a dick to them, they're going to be a dick to you. So that way it instills real consequences to basically your actions. Now there seems to be some kind of bug going on here where they think that they can shoot you over the cars. So I have to figure out what's going on there. But that is something that I'm tracking going into Monday. And this is the perfect like little case study of like reproducing it. Because then I can just go back, place those movies. Right?
It looked like I got stuck on the wall.
They
The
didn't
moment
get
you
stuck.
remove that wall,
No, the issue is a line of sight trace. Something with the car is confusing them. One system is saying I can shoot. The other one's saying I can't. And I have some theories on that here and there. So I'm going to have to like get into the nitty gritty and figure out what's going on there. The one thing you will notice is that they're going to stop attacking me because they destroyed all my structures. So when I start building another base, then whoever's still alive in this zone is going to arm up and try and hit my base. That's kind of like our take a chill pill thing, where if they destroy all your bases and you're licking your wound, they'll intentionally leave you alone just to give you some time to rebuild. And the other thing I would say is, like, if an infected group encounters them on the way to your base, they will fight each other to the death. So, like, I have a recording of that I can show, because there was a weird bug that I had earlier in the week where they were spawning like crazy amounts. Like, they were like because the problem was is that they were trying to kill the infected. So this happened, and this is obviously kind of shows the potential for the civilian evacuation and the dynamic civilian groups. Is that in this example, for some reason, they were more fixated on killing the nearby gas tower than killing me. So then the infected decided to respond and send a massive counterattack. Eventually, they overran them. And you can see that we gave them like preliminary gas masks because they're still running the base code that CERC does. You'll also notice that there's some animation issues because this was an earlier recording in the week that I was just kind of like recording and just seeing, oh, this is interesting. I need to look into this and just kind of see how this feels later down the line. As you can see in this example, the blow-up guys just decided to boom their entire spawning entrance and kill everyone. And then, like, you figure they're triggering a response because they're hitting the gas tower and their attack units and their investigation units. So then they're like, okay, like, fuck CERC, let's go kill them instead. So I had to tone that down.
Yeah, I do.
Well, yeah, I had to tone that down because that wasn't their purpose in gameplay. Is the idea is that, like, you figure it was getting to the point where, like, every time they launched an attack anywhere near an infected base, they would basically just bog down the infected. So, and then the issue was that there was a bug where they had unlimited spawning. So they were just crapping out. So there was no one left in that building back there, but they were still spawning units. So I fixed that earlier in the week because you'll see that here, like, if I were to unpause it, they would spawn in this building until like, everyone's dead. And then they would start spawning here or here or here or here. Now, the interesting part is you can see my reputation's pretty much gone at this point, and then the reputation's lower here and lower here. It's because you figure I committed a war atrocity here, but these people are like, oh, I don't believe that. I don't think that happened. Maybe it did happen. Maybe. I'm not sure. So the idea is it's a trickle-down effect. That is going to be balanced going into next week for the first couple of playtests. It's just basically seeing how it feels. Because you figure, I feel like this is too low. It should probably be like halfway to the midpoint. And then just lower the amount that it takes to hit 0. I think that the amount of reputational loss that you get is going to need to be like nerfed a lot. Like probably like 70 to 80% is a baseline to start playtesting from. Because then there's going to be times where you're going to want to purge. You're going to want to condemn. And I don't want to make it to where once you do it, you're just stuck into a way of playing. Because, like, I'll give you an example. I think I was talking to Kat earlier in DMs earlier, and she was playing one of the builds for me. And she was saying that she was intentionally setting a zone to full martial law. And the problem with that is that if you kept it, because she was doing it based on the idea of slowing down the infection spread in that zone. But the problem is that she would leave it on so long that she'd get, like, everybody coming to her base and just ramming her. It was just bad. Like, literally, she couldn't leave her base. And then you had the infected coming in one direction. And then you had the militia coming in another direction. It was a 1-2 punch. I think she lost from my understanding. And like I was explaining to her earlier, is that it's not fully implemented yet in terms of, like, full martial law slows down their infection tick rate of the surviving population. But there's still a couple of last-minute tweaks we have to do to make it, like, fully affect the infection's ability to build units. That's something that we're doing going into next week before we, like, release it out to everyone, just to give this more of a purpose for the martial law. It's more of a, like, we got the mechanical side of things working, the visual side of things working, and the co-op side of things working. But now we just need to, like, add the limiters to the infection, the infected faction manager so that it works within the new limitations, in a way that's fair. Because I did curve the holy hell out of partial and full. I ended up pivoting. I know we talked about this earlier last week of making partial to where it would be like only at not 9 o'clock to 5 a.m. And I was like, that's kind of shit because that's too realistic. So I ended up just making partial where it was a 25% and then full was 50% infection spread reduction. So you can see right there is I just hit that threshold. So now they decided to spawn and they sent out a small little group. Now, let me show you the system I put in. So if I go and I turn off martial law, and hopefully it's not going to break and make it awkward. The idea is that in Legacy we didn't have this. And I talked to a lot of people in Steam reviews and on the forums and on Discord, and I kept hearing that once you went bad, there was no redemption. There was no real way of kind of getting back in good graces with them. So one of the things that I put in is kind of like an incubator system that I need to balance more going into this first playtest is having a timeout. Or the idea would be is that relations normalize just by default over time. Things soften. People aren't as mad. People are a little more accommodating. So the idea is like after 30 seconds, it'll start ticking up on this meter. And that'll make it to where you can slowly but surely winch your way back. And then obviously civilian evacuation is the main way of regaining reputation in a zone. But the other thing is time, because that'll basically soften people's opinions and just people just calm down, they forget kind of deal. So see right there it goes. So you can see it just ticked up a little bit. So that is still pending balance. I want to just put out the first version, talk to people, play some games, see how it feels, and then find a baseline for redemption. So then that way, if you have a dick that joins your co-op session and decides to, I don't know, blow up half the map with a Moab, you're not just assed out for the rest of the game. Because technically, one of the things I'm going to be putting in next week is if I drop an airstrike on this building, or if I drop a Moab in this area, it's going to kill every one of these buildings. So the idea is that it's just going to say, oh, I hit a roll building. I'm going to roll 30% casualties or 40% casualties. So then that way, you got to think about, can I drop a Moab? Can I just start airstriking? Am I going to hit a roll building and incur civilian casualties? And then later on, that'll tie into like having people on the street and being able to shoot them towards the end of civilian evacuation. Because that's the more complicated performance-heavy system. So we were like, it seems like everyone's would prefer, this is my read on the situation, just get the civilian evacuation in, get the militia, and get like the people moving between the building and the buses, and then get all that heavy mechanical stuff and the fun stuff in, and then go back at the end of civilian evacuation and focus a couple of days on getting like the people that walk on the sidewalks and the people that like, the operators can run around and shoot in the face for no fucking reason. Like that kind of stuff. So that's something that we're kind of inkling towards the end of the, probably the end, at the end of civilian evacuation. So let me go ahead and pause this because I don't want to play an actual session. So that kind of sums up what we've been doing with the militia. And again, they're going to tier up the RPGs. I'm going to have to see how the first couple of playtests goes when we put this out into the wild and just see if I need to change some of the spawn chances, because you figure like the RPGs are going to be brutal. They're going to AoE. They're going to kill entire squads in one hit. They're going to one-hit your vehicles if they get a lucky shot, especially if it's unarmored like an Ajax. So you figure it's going to be a headache to bog you down, basically. And it's going to be really interesting just how that kind of replicates out and just what feels right, what feels wrong, and just kind of balancing it accordingly. Let's see. What else do we have here? Yeah,
It's going to be interesting to see how people deal with this. I
will say. It's a lot
it's
better
gonna
than
be
Legacy
extremely,
system.
Yeah, it's going to be extremely unique to see who was the one that starts a riot and who was the one that kind of like calms everyone down. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Who just
yeah.
and who just goes full umbrella and just murders everyone.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people that go umbrella because you figure it's still viable. You can still do that. You're just going to have more of a slog fest, and you're going to have to just be more reactionary and just keep more scouts and more feelers out. Because technically, if you just position a couple of snipers at key locations, you can probably kill most of the civilians before they reach your base and outrank them. I'll like tier them until they get snipers, they get rockets, and they get better assault rifles. Then at that point, you probably would have killed most of the map anyway. But it just adds another layer of strategy to, like, replayability. And obviously for everyone that's like doesn't like these mechanics and systems, you're going to get custom game options. So you'll be able to turn off this. You'll be able to turn off the reputation. You'll be able to turn off losing reputation by killing civilians, all that fun stuff. So then that way you can kind of like play the game you want. So if you absolutely want to play Umbrella and you don't want to deal with the consequences, you can, because that's the whole appeal of pandemic mode, is allowing you a sandbox to refine and tweak things of what you feel like doing today. So the other thing was the buses. So once I go find Derek's civvy map, hold on. Okay, so this is our ugly little map that Derek's been basically going in and setting up the intake buses while I've been working on the militia. We finally got the buses in and functional, more so than what we had last week, in terms of just getting the actual UI up and getting it supporting for multiplayer. That one was a royal bitch, because the faction manager took 2 days from us for just cleaning up and just making allies work. But the other part was we severely underestimated just how complicated these sons of bitches are for the buses themselves, and just setting up the actual intake and the management between zones, where you can see, like, okay, the bus got called home. He has his own AI. He fits 128 people. And, like, you figure what was funny is that earlier in the week, the mobs were attacking the bus. So we had to, like, lurk them or teleport them into the bus just so we can test it. And then around Thursday, we were like, you know what? Fuck it. We can't put it off. Let's just do the retrofits, because it's affecting my ability to work on the militia, because the militias were shooting civilians. They were working for the civilians and trying to protect them, but they didn't understand they were an ally, because this was our first system in the entire game where diplomacy and, like, alliances are a thing. So it allowed us to build the foundation for later systems, but it also stress tests some things that, like, okay, that didn't work out like we intended it to. So, like, if I click here and I click here, you're going to notice that the bus immediately just kind of goes out and does his thing. He'll move to the structure as closely as possible. And we're kind of still tweaking the performance of this bus. Me and Derek aren't really happy with the proportions and the size of this bus, because the Unreal Engine does not like vehicles of a crazy amount of fucking proportions. Like, it makes sense in real life that you'd have a bus this size and an Abrams that size and like an Ajax that size. But when you start to get to, like, vehicles of this shape and size, it really, really introduces a lot of points of failure. So one thing right now is we're evaluating with Dimitri. He made some collision changes and some improvements to the handling and the throttle and the acceleration and all the other fun stuff to make sure the bus is working and viable. But me and Derek are still skeptical. So we're waiting to see just how it performs going into, like, today and Monday and Tuesday, because we might end up keeping the capacity but cutting down the bus to be the size of the Ajax from a technical standpoint, just so that we can better guarantee its reliability in driving. So you might see, like, a last minute change to the bus mesh to just probably cut it to where the text is, where CERC is, and then just edit the mesh a little bit here. But we're playing that by ear in terms of our evaluation runs right now, because you can see right now the bus is full. And what did I do? I set up an evacuation point. So let's say in the course of your game in Zone D, regardless, they're coming over virtually. So you're getting a population that's moving without the buses, that are just, like, picking up their suitcases and coming over. But then you're also getting the buses. And the more buses you build, the more you can move. So if you build up to 12 buses, then you're moving 1,000 people, give or take, constantly. So, because each one fits, like, 128, yeah, so roughly around 1,000 and change. So the idea is that, like, it's going to come over here, and it's going to basically find a home to drop them off at. And we also put in this week overpopulation. So overpopulation was a system in Legacy that allowed buildings to go over their stack 100% up to 200%. But the problem is that if you overpopulate a site, you start to lose reputation, because people are crowded, they have nowhere to live, they can't stretch out. And so based off of the level That's new. So I don't know what's going on there. We're gonna have to look into that. But you figure the idea is that it's what? Okay, I got that on recording. Oh my god! It went overpopulated to 120 and then decided to kill everyone else. Okay, you didn't see that. That didn't happen. That didn't happen. Like I
Yep,
said,
it did not. Definitely didn't happen.
that did
Nothing
not
happened.
happen. Yeah, we're still working on it. Like I said, there's a reason why this isn't released yet, is that the system is very complicated and there's a lot of moving parts. So we're slowly but surely writing the AI pathfinding for the bus, setting up the zone management logic so then that way zones can cross-communicate. Because you can see in this case, there's like 7 people alive in this zone. And they've been earmarked for pickup by the bus. So the bus is coming over to basically like pick them up. They're going to run in, and then it's going to go drop them off. And then if you have an emergency situation, there's the issue right there, where that like it gets so close to the structures because of how large it is, and it's a technical limitation of the Unreal Engine. Like it's a fickle bitch. So it's one of those things where we want to probably resize this a little bit here to make it to where it's a little more easier to get around, per se. But again, we're gonna see what we can do going into early next week because, like, I talked to Derek and we were like, there's no way in fuck we can get like a civilian evacuation build out. It would just be rushed and a piece of shit. So now we're aiming for next Friday because you figure now that we got the framework in for this thing and we got the buses and let's see, let me do something crazy live because it's always embarrassing when you put a bunch of things in and then it's like, oh, I'm going to break live. So let's just see if I get anything crazy. I don't think Derek's no, he hasn't put in the limit yet, but I think I'm going to, yeah. How much power am I getting generated? I have enough. So let's see, this is, yeah, so that's going to be a thing. So let's do a quick little field test. So we're going to click here on the zone, and we're going to say, grab those people. So, and then what we're going to do is we're going to purge to clear up some space. And then my bus army is going to mobilize. So, essentially, in this case, you'd be, I mean, depending on how you're playing, ideally, you have this on your back lines, and you're not crazy enough to send this into red zones. I mean, you do you, boo. If you want to do that, I don't care. But the idea is that these things are very lightweight, so you're going to want to protect them. Maybe have some players or operators that are assigned to them to provide security to them. Because they're going to be a threat. Sorry, they're going to be a target to them. It looks like this one has decided to become one with that wing. Let me see if it's a power issue. I wonder, let me see. I think that's a power issue. I think that those, because that one didn't open. That one didn't open. Yeah, I think I'm overpowered. Let me see. I don't, what are you doing? Okay, you're a dick. Go away. Oh, fuck. I ended up purging, and the people in that building got really fucking mad, so they decided to attack me. Can you go away for this demonstration, please? Oh, motherfucker.
Make sure to ask them politely.
Yeah, no, literally. And then they're going to camp my engineer as he comes down. I already know. They're going to probably shoot him as he's coming down, are they? Yeah, wait. No, they're not shooting him yet, but they're blowing up my depots. Kill them. Kill them all. Oh, motherfuckers. Okay, maybe I won't purge. I won't purge. Or maybe I can just put them all in God mode. Yeah, I'll just put them all in God mode. There we go. I'll put them all in God mode, so that way the base buses don't get deleted. And then I'll just keep calling in engineers. Let me stop purging. Resend order. You can kind of see how just like, yeah, this is definitely a mechanic of consequences. Where it's like they pretty much got pissy at me within like a minute or two and immediately decided to get some guns and attack me. And right now, they're just basically trying to destroy my structures that are in God mode, but they can go fuck themselves. You know what? I think I'm just going to call in an engineer and put him in God mode, and he's just going to be Terminator. And he's just going to kill everyone for me. Yeah, they're shooting him as he comes down. Freaking dicks. So yeah, go kill them all. He's in God mode anyway, so he's about to go Call of Duty. Get a little bit closer. Okay, we're good. Until more come. But you can see that they're all coming over, and they're basically... See, this one's missing his garage. So he's like, build me a garage, please. Like, I need a purpose in life. So if I were to build a garage, let's see if the system's going to work correctly. Who is attacking me now? I should have built more security before I started purging. Because now they're destroying my buses, and they're fucking up my shit. Ugh. Okay, you know what? For the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to put in a small army of spec ops. So if they try that shit again, they're going to get shot the moment they leave the fucking building. Because I just need to be able to show this without getting El Shadio. That is like really annoying. I forgot how quickly that system does not give any shits about what you're trying to show. Okay, that'll work. There should be enough there so where that would give me like critical mass based off of their weapons and their DPS. And just for sake of fuck them, I'm putting all those units in God mode for the sake of time. That way I can get back to showing what I was showing. So let me build a couple more of these. And then that way I can just kind of show a mass example of it. So you guys can get an idea of like where this week went and what the thought process is. And just generally what you're going to be doing with like these dynamic missions that you might be just tasking your friends with or yourself with. In terms of basically like, okay, like y'all are in charge of maintaining security for anyone coming out of C. Another team's in charge of E, another team's in charge of D. And if they lose a bus, well, it comes out of their paycheck because they have to buy the replacement. So you see in that example, I just set every bus, so every zone to come to B. So I just mass set it, and now the buses are going to figure it out in terms of like, okay, I have my homes, I have a assortment of mobs that I've been assigned to. Let's go and pick them up. And you figure, you know, it's doing its thing in terms of basically like, okay, that one already has that building reserved. We need to go to another building. Because you figure, so it did that, it emptied it out, so it's 0. And basically now it's just like, let's see, moving to pick up civilians. So that's one thing I would say that we got to improve is when they're in a zone, if the zone still has people, please don't cross over to another zone because you figure that's an inefficiency. So this is one of those things where it's like, so this is the other thing, like where they like, because they're so large and their acceleration is so weird, they love to crash into shit and then they'll reverse. So that's something else where it's like, that's why me and Derek have 0 confidence in getting a bus asset this size working. It's probably going to be cut in half or at least by 1/4 to make it just more reasonable in terms of just generally like with design restrictions that any game, any engine employs on you. You get to kind of work around it. So you can see in this example, they're going to go over here. I bet they're going to crash into it. Are you going to crash into it? Oh, they stopped early. Wow. Surprising. And then we know about that weird visual issue. It's something with the Fog of War, where they do that weird, like, Buzz Buddy single pose. You see that building got emptied, so they immediately retasked. And they're, like, moving as a convoy to go pick up people. So they're going to, well, let's see, where are these guys going? Let's see if they're going to screw up. We're going to stare at them very intently. I'm going to, can I tab follow you? Yeah, tab.
Intense butt staring continues.
Let's see if he screws up. Are you really going to? Nope. Okay, so he got there, and he was like, there's no one here anymore. So that's a bug. Because what should have happened is there should have been a delegate that fired off. That was like, your current move to goal is now desolate of all life. Reload your logic and find another structure that is close to you that is occupied. Because now they're like all making their way over to this structure, D, when realistically it should be based off of proximity. So in my mind, if you're going to start in D, you're going to end in D for like the buses that are going here. And the ones that are going to C, same thing. And then once D is clear, the ones in D would help C. And then once C is clear, then they'd all go to E. And then once E is clear, they go to F, then they go to G. Because it makes sense to me based off of distance to the said drop-off point. Now, one of the other things that we still have to work on going into next week before we say the buses are done, alongside the other issues I just talked about, was having that waypoint system. because we want to make it to where like, okay, that's all nice and all. They want to take it up to this building, but I don't give a shit. That's not efficient. So we're going to be adding in a placeholder asset that Dimitri's going to be working on, where you can build like little like way stations over here, and instead of going to these buildings, they'll drop the mobs off at those way stations, and then the mobs will have to walk to wherever they were pre-assigned to move to. Now, I want to add one extra caveat here for the people that are here every week. Now, obviously, if you had a civilian admin hole and it was turned on, they would go to that instead of going to the buildings. So it's an order of prioritization where it's like, okay, you know, so if I had this baby built and it was turned on and I had staff maintaining it, then instead of even attempting to go to the buildings, they would just start dropping everyone off here. So then that way, it would be like, okay, you build your way stations of like whatever you were going to build over here, which is what we're going to be working on early in next week. And then they either go to the buildings, the world buildings, or they go to the admin hold based off of your intake rules. And are you even doing that in that zone? Because one of the biggest things when I talk to people just across the wave of the internet was they wanted a reliable way of understanding of like being able to deny Chelsea resources and moving populations around. So if you're a D and shit ain't going right, you can deny Chelsea resources. So you can just literally evacuate everyone out, wait till the last bus is gone, and then just siege your base to them. Or just hold as long as you want, and then just start bombing all of the buildings that basically still have population in them to kill them, if you don't want her to get them anyway. I mean, it's going to be a war crime, and you're going to get everyone and their mama trying to come over and kill you, but not my problem. You guys will have to solve that on your own.
Not my problem.
Yeah, pretty much.
Nah.
But like, I'm curious here because you see, they're still moving the pickup people, and what they do is like they're filling up their max, and then they go to the next one. So like depending on like all these structures have barely any people in them. I think they're barely like 60 people. So you figure it's probably like, I think it's one home every two. Yeah, it's probably a little over like each bus can fit 2 homes. So you figure they could pretty much probably clear the entire test map out pretty quickly of the population. Obviously, if there were some efficiencies in how they're calculating, it'd be a little bit more faster. I don't like how slow they are. That's something else that we need to work on. You know what? I'm kind of curious right now. So hands up if you guys think you guys want this changed, or just kind of like really quickly ask the question. Would you guys prefer to have this box moved to the details panel? Because like this was just something that like Derek did on autopilot because it was just how it was in Legacy. But I feel like this moving to pick up civilians, the seat, the button, the pause button, I feel like that breaks a design rule, and that realistically this should be down here in that empty black space. Do you guys agree? Disagree? YouTube, Discord? So Cat says, Durva agrees, Cat agrees, YouTube? Any other cats? Okay, down. Okay. So like you figure that's something that like, well, I'm going to see what other people say. Because like this one pauses it. So the idea is that like if I click on that, let's see if it works. Yeah, it doesn't work. Okay, yeah, he's still working on the other stuff. But the idea is that if that was working, you click on that. And that's the other thing I don't like, is that you almost have to play like footsies with the buttons. You have to be like really fast to click on it. I don't like that. It's this bad design. And it's one of those things where I'm trying to get away from Legacy, where it was like, yeah, it functionally worked, but the whole point or why we invested all that time and effort into the rebuild was to do things a little more efficiently. And like this details panel down here is prime real estate for just showing it down here, guiding it here, and then having your pause. This is pause. So if you want them to stop, like let's say for instance they're going to cross a bridge, and you don't like, you figure like, everyone just stop at the bridge. I know I told everyone to evacuate or leave zone B, but I can't guarantee your safety, or some people just died over there. So you click on all your buses, and then you would hit the pause. And then that would allow you to basically be like, okay, like you still have your goal, but I'm going to send some people in. I'm going to set up some security, and then you unpause it, and it just switches to a resume button. Then the other ones return to base. So then that way, if you want them to just cut their losses, like let's say, for instance, they're evacuating in a zone, that is no longer secure, then that way you can click on them and you can return them back to base that way. And honestly, I'm of the idea that we need to... Personally, I fucking hated those buttons over units and Legacy. But with the rebuild, honestly, I'm just thinking out loud here now that I'm playing it, like just testing it, because I've been in isolation. I've been just completely tunnel vision on Militia, and then Derek's been entirely tunnel vision on the buses and trying to get them to a point of completion. And just kind of talking out loud, honestly, I'm of the idea of fuck this button and that button being there. They just need to be down here. They just need to be abilities that are down here. To return to base is a button. Pause, resume is a button. And the only thing that goes in that details panel is the seats and what they're thinking. Because that's breaking a design language anyway. Like you figure I guess you can have the buttons here, but I don't know. I'm going to mull that over. That's a decision I'm going to have to make going into Monday, because now that I'm looking at it now and just kind of talking it out loud, I'm like, I want to kind of drill that down a little bit. Maybe I'll try some ideas going into Monday and do an experiment where they're here and here and just see how they feel. Personally, I don't know. How do you guys feel about it? Would you guys prefer return to base and the pause and resume button being in the details panel? Or would you prefer it being an ability down here on the bottom right so you can hotkey it? Because I'm thinking about this. Click on all of them, return to home. Click on all of them, pause, resume. I think hotkey them, which I just did. So I have all the buses hotkeyed. I'd be like, oh no, I have the buses going to zone B. I need to hotkey them. So that way I can press 1 and then press H or whatever. And then that allows me to pause them. So personally, in my opinion, now that I'm just kind of thinking it out loud and just kind of talking it through with you guys, I think that that is a thing from Legacy that needs to fucking die. So yeah, I'm starting to think that just talking it out loud, just kind of seeing what you guys are saying in the channels. So expect that on Monday. Is that to die away the dinosaur from just one of the things that we did in Legacy? Because technically, Purge and Condemn should probably not be here, and they should probably be a button. And we should set up some kind of way of being able to group select buildings, so then that way you can mass purge or mass condemn. Because I saw someone asking that on Discord, and I saw someone mentioning that last Saturday at the podcast, where they were like, is there any kind of mass way of mass condemning and mass purging? Because then we're running into the same problem of quality of life. Nobody wants to sit there and play fucking Find Waldo. Of well, I gotta purge that one, and then that building, and this building, and that building, and then those buildings. And before you know it, you're clicking on 30 buildings. Or purge all 30 buildings. Or to condemn 30 buildings. Just so it's safe for you to build in the city. So, yeah, it's just one of those things where it's I'm going to have to get into the nitty gritty going into next week. And just kind of work with Derek to rough out some of the edges and refine it for those hotkey kids. But also just keeping the design language consistent across the board for implementation. Because you can see in this example, F's almost empty and G is on its way. Let me see something. I'm going to slow-mo 5. Oh, okay. Who's still left? Oh, that might be a bug. What the heck is going on over there? Okay, can we kill them? Okay, you know what? You're in God mode. You go over there, kill those civilian militia. We're just going to do a good little nice box. Just shoot them as they come out. Flashbang. Okay, killing civilians, 10 out of 10. So you figure...
Killing civilians, the favorite thing to do.
Lord Jesus Christ. No comment. So yeah, you can see this. Yeah, okay, that's a failure state right there. So you see the bus went so fast that it lodged itself into the actual structure. So yeah, I'm thinking that I'm advocating for changing the asset because there's a design thing that affected Legacy. This is another reason why we never took the evacuation buses in Legacy. In Legacy, they were characters. They never were converted to the chaos vehicles because we knew that the current vehicle pathfinding in the rebuild is light years better than the rebuild. But it's like failure clauses like this where we're like, okay, we need to rethink some of these vehicles and adjust them. Because, like, let me guess. Like, if I F8 and I move you, are you going to recover? Yeah, it recovers. Because, again, their physics state bugged them into that object. So I'm thinking we're going to have to 1-800 chop it up. And just kind of make it a little more reasonable in terms of their size. Because the other issue is slopes. These buses cannot go up this slope to save their lives. So that means in some of the maps, they're going to... Holy fuck! This is awkward.
Oh wow.
Okay. Yeah, there's a
Hmm.
there's a pretty...
That's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, it looks like the civilians aren't reacting to flashbangs. So I gotta fix that. They're not being stunned. I wonder why. It could be something... Because it's always that interesting part of design where, like, you've tested the combat with one faction and one way of playing with the infected, that there's probably some kind of safety system. Oh, fuck, that's why. It's because you figure the CERC aren't affected by flashbangs. And there's probably a CERC check that's protecting the civilians because they are gun bearers and nobody else in the game is allowed to use guns. Okay. Yeah, that's a simple fix. I just got to hunt down the flashbang code and see where the if-else statement is. It's basically saying, like, it basically probably thinks there's some kind of version of CERC. Because, again, this is our first unit in the entire game that has guns. And that's the other thing that I'm going to be working on going into next week, is improving their intelligence for when they have guns and they're attacking you. Because they don't... Like, okay, it's nice and all if they move towards you and they shoot you. But, like, I need to kind of iron out their reliability of, like, if you have a pistol or an SMG or a shotgun, you're rushing. You're getting in someone's face. You're strafing them. You're moving. You have an assault rifle or a sniper rifle, you're at medium to long range. You're taking shots. Your RPG, you're staying at medium to long range. Because you figure they have an RPG, but I made the spawn chance really fucking low. Because I didn't want it to be a frustration mechanic of, like, every freaking time you spawned an RPG to your front gate. So I was like, let me just make sure that the RPG is like you have to get that reputation down to 0. And not every single wave is going to spawn with that. I got to see how that's going to feel because I might have to make that system more adaptive to where, like, over failed attacks, they understand that you're using armor. And then it basically floors the chance of them bringing armor to bear. So that way it still gives you a challenge in the mid to late game. And it's not just civilians just getting mopped up by, like, strikers and shit. Because you still want some kind of challenge. And you can see that, like, they're doing their best, but my guys are... I mean, had I not had them in God mode, I would have been overran a long time ago. But you can kind of see that in play. Let's see if they ever finish. Yeah, they finished. So you can see all the zones are desolate and empty of all life. Looks like we got a failure state in this zone. Which building failed? Oh, you know what? I know what that is. It's the overpopulation. So there's not enough space for them to drop them off probably somewhere, or like this. No, there's space here. That's odd. Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that. There's something weird going on, but if I had to guess, one of these buses is not dropping off their population. I'm not sure. We're gonna have to debug that. So, like, that's something that we're, like, again, like, we're getting close to the point of getting it to where everything is done. Because my goal was, I was hoping to get to it today, was get it to the point where everything was done but the civilian admin center. And then at that point, we focus all of next week getting the 5 divisions online. There's definitely going to be bleed over. Because as you guys can see, there's about 3 or 4 bugs for the intakes that need to be handled over, efficiency, small little changes, quality of life changes here and there. And then I need to iron out these guys' AI performance and make sure they actually do some more strategies. So I would probably say around Monday, Tuesday is what we're going to be aiming for to get to a point where we're finally able to start working on the divisions. And then we're going to try, because then at that point, like, we'll have, I would say around Monday, Tuesday, we'll also have the euthanization tent that we can show you guys. That's going to have the atlases that are just delivering dead bodies to, like, the body pits that you can build. So we'll have that asset to show. Dimitri was trying to show it today, but he didn't finish it in time. So he's a perfectionist. So he doesn't like to show anything that's not done yet or like spazzy sexy. I had to like hold his arm back just to show the early version of this untextured. So you figure if it's not done by then, I'll just like, beat him with the stick and just show the unfinished version. Because like, sometimes artists tend to be like super perfectionist where they're just like, look, people just want to see tangible progress. They want to see what are we envisioning, what are we going for, what's the thought process with some of these structures. Because you can see like
they want flashy new things in their face.
Lord. Well, because like you figure you can see like obviously a lot changed from this asset from like the initial block out that we showed you guys like a month ago to like the final realized mesh like a couple weeks later. Because, there's a lot of like back and forth and like brainstorming that the artist goes through and the technical side of things for like these roofs and just make everything look nice and function. Let me check my list. Is there anything else that I'm breezing over? Oh, right. Everything saves and loads for when I'm showing. So that was another thing that went into this week, which is getting the buses to save and load. I'm sure there'll be some issues that prop up when we actually get out to putting it out to the world. But it's just, that's one of the things that we were working on this week. I know we said we weren't going to add save and load support, but then we were like, fuck it. Like, let's just make it to where we can get as close as possible. So when we do release it on experimental, it is, I guess you could say, as frictionless as possible, where people can give us save files and we can debug their issues relatively quickly instead of like having to work backwards of like, okay, you can play it, but you can't save it, So we were trying to basically like get everything to a point of completion as close as possible. Like I'm still going to hold the opinion that for the first couple of builds with the civilian admin and the 5 divisions, you're probably going to get some saving and loading issues for a couple of days, but then those will stabilize out over like, a week at most in worst case. Yeah, it's still dribble, but I'll mention it anyway. We did put it in there for a fix that these meshes save and load now. There were some issues with like their seed generator for the infected and for the mobs, to where basically like they were like it was kind of weird. Like they would save and load unreliably. So like let's see if it's gonna make me embarrassed. We're gonna save, and then we're gonna load, and then you can see like they reloaded their mesh and they just kind of did a micro movement. But you figure like for the most part they went back to what? Oh fuck! God mode doesn't save. Oh, God mode doesn't save. I forgot about that. They literally killed half my defense team the moment I did that. But yeah, no. So you can see like we got that working, got that functional, and that was one of the other things that I just kind of worked out with the saving and loading. So you'll get that in there as like a bug fix because it wasn't that much of a priority for the infected, but we just wanted to get it in there anyway and just kind of knock that off our list. It's one of the last things. What is going on there? Hold on. This is gonna bug the shit out of me. I think this is literally. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't want to grab his arm. F11. And then, I'm clicking his weapon because it's particle. Yeah, I hate that. That's something else that I got to figure out is I got to get the RVO working for them. So then that way they don't go inside of each other like that because that's just bad. That's just bad. So the infected don't have that issue nearly as much, but that's something that we need to kind of work to rectify from a technical standpoint is implementing some level of RVO or object avoidance. So that way, like, it pushes them apart from each other, kind of like in StarCraft. It's a more simplistic version, a dumbed down version of it. But it's something that me and Derek are going to look into doing after civilian evac. And we're kind of earmarking that for like, probably like, in my mind, we'll be done with civilian evac by like in the next week, worst case 2 weeks. So between the 10th and the 15th is when we're aiming to be completely done with civilian evac, have all the features and mechanics in. We've already had a good amount of time to incubate and refine and tweak. And then we're going to be going in and tuning up their AI as we're working on the operator polish and just seeing what we can do about that RVO avoidance, just to kind of cut down that idea of people being inside of each other sometimes. Let me see if I can test it again. Yeah, it looks like it's definitely a CERC check that's protecting them for the flashbang. So I'll look into that and fix that. That's simple enough. And I've already caught it on recording, so it's very easy to reproduce. Okay, so there's that. Let me check my list, and then I think There, Var. Is there anything else you want to hit upon before we start Q&A?
Hang on, let me double check. I don't think there's anything I want to hit on personally.
Okay.
I think we've covered everything in the list I've got.
Oh, right. Yeah?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. One other thing that I'll put in there is that Leon is working on the balance still. He was working on the gun combat because it's always been a problem child in Legacy with like dynamic civilian groups, and just generally like how they would interact with you in Legacy was undesirably annoying. Where like the time to kill was like nerve-wrackingly bad. So he is getting to a point because he's been sitting in with like different groups on the Discord, whether it be the moderators, the Patreons, and the public people, and just seeing what people are saying on Steam and Discord and reviews, and basically being like, hey, okay, I'll look at that. Can you show me what you're talking about? So Leon is super fucking friendly on the Discord. So if you have a balance concern, or you want something looked at, or you're not sure if this is intended, or so this is, I don't know, the easy exploit or cheap way of beating the game, tag Leon or Hawkins Leon and bring it up to him. And I'm sure he'll be willing to sit in the room with you, hash it out. I mean, they share screen. So like he'll go in there and he'll basically share screens and play with different groups of people on the public Discord on and off. So then that way he can see and he can judge his early test build for performance and balance, for balance. And he can also just do it in isolation by himself, because I see him almost playing the game on the public Discord every day. So just keep that in mind, is that we're trying to transition to a point where the base RTS balance is solidified. I mean, barring the reputation and like the money changes that are going to need to be tweaked when we get civilian evacuation. And that's just going to be a thing that we're going to have to deal with in the next couple of weeks. But he's trying to get like the infected to CERC combat solidified. So if Juggernauts are still feeling cheap, I don't know, the little guy is pissing you off. Like, is there anything you want to bring to our attention? I'd recommend that you throw that in Leon's corner or Michael's corner and just tag them on the Discord and they'll get back to you, whether it be in a forum or in the general chat. They might ask you to go to a thread just so they can keep it consolidated and have a reference point to follow up with you in the future, because things get buried really fucking quickly on the Discord and Steam. Steam's also a good place for that too. They monitor that daily. They might not reply all the time because they're a little bit fucking shy and I have to do it, but they do their best to basically communicate y'all. So if there's still an issue that you guys want to bring to our attention, please try and bring that to our attention earlier in the week, so then that way I can throw him in the deep end for balancing out the reputation, the weapon-to-weapon combat, and set the precedent for the police and the anarchist faction in the next couple months. Because like you figure, Lord believe, like what you're encountering with the dynamic civilian groups is going to kind of like allow us to kind of carve out per se, like generally how gun combat feels, how like if Pierce's group gets an RPG, how is that going to work towards your little bird? Or like if they have an armor-piercing gun, how is that going to work for your drivers, to shoot your driver and kill them? So it's little stuff like that that they're going to be ironing out and balancing with the civilians to just basically get some more groundwork done for Pierce and Natalie. Because what I've done with the retrofits, because this week, a good portion of it also was just retrofitting and improving. Like I started it last week, and then I got it to a point where I'm happy with it with some function overloads to make it to where like how the militia work is completely different in terms of the prioritizations and how they perceive the world as a faction than the infected. But putting the militia in and forcing that in now as like an incubator for like Pierce and Natalie allows me to you can kind of see there are similarities between like how the militia spawn, how they work, but they're still distinctly different in terms of how they operate with the guns and what forces them to come into being. So that same system is like, kind of leading into the police group, where like they're just like they operate out of the police stations and all the other medical, facilities on the map. So that's something that we're moving towards, and I just wanted to basically hammer that down in terms of like the militia being the first step towards what everyone wants, the police faction. because then you're going to be able to recruit their cars and their infantry if you're in good favor with them. If you're a dick, they're just going to want to kill you, just like the dynamics, like the militia per se, because we're treating the militia as not like a faction, but more of like a penalty or like a partisan group that just kind of pops up, attacks you, and then they fuck off for a while, and it just is like a consequence for being a shit, being an asshole. So that kind of sums up everything I have to go over this week in terms of basically progress. Now we can segue into the Q&A part and just see what kind of questions you guys have and go from there. So
I've seen quite a few questions here. So going up, let me have a look.
Okay.
So Moro said, question. I don't quite remember if we talked about it, about transporting zombies across water, but I'll ask anyway. How do you guys plan on move zombies across water?
Right now we're looking into the train stations, the garrison system that one of the other previous cats in the room brought up a couple weeks ago. And then we're looking into basically having some kind of boat or event-based system. Then there's the Leviathan tunneling ability, where they would basically make Nihilist worm-type tunnels. That was basically the equivalent of a garrison system in Legacy. The last thing is we're still debating on the bird spreading, because I don't want to take away from the role of the little guys as a builder. Because the whole point of why I made the builders was so that way you had a certifiable enemy of like, in like StarCraft, you kill the drone, you stop their ability to build. But so that's the thought process there. And we're pivoting towards that direction, I would say, after the civilian evacuation. Because you can figure at that point, we're going to need to bite the bullet. Efren's getting to a point in the next week or so where he has nothing else to do. So he's going to be working on San Francisco North, and he's going to be working on a sprint to get that map playable, not pretty, but playable in the next week or two when he transitions over to that. And then at that point, I mean, we're done with civilian evacuation at that point. It's towards the end of the month. I mean, maybe we just put off working on the OCAC and the LHA6, and we just get that AI stuff that we want to do in there. Because I want to focus on the infected and their AI and make them a little more intelligent, get Greg back in, and then give those methods of traversal for yourself and for them, because we need to open up new ways of transit outside of Greg. So if you turn it off, Leviathan or Greg, it's not just game over for the infection, because that's how it was in Legacy. And then once you masked out Sam turrets, it was also the same thing. So I just want to make sure there's an escalation. And right now it's starting to feel disproportionately like in the favor of the infected, especially, sorry, not the infected, CERC, especially once we put in civilian evacuation. So there's going to be some give that I'm going to have to do going into like the end of this month to just kind of iron out those elements. What's the next one, Durvar?
Thank you. So the next one is from Kat. This one is likely covering the mobs, the civilians that take up arms.
See?
Will they eventually be getting different unit character models and the outfits that more fit in with a militia?
Eventually. Right now, they just repurposed non-infected. But that's something that Michael's going to have to fill in over the next couple of weeks as he's working on transitioning over to Pierce and Natalie's stuff. So that is on our list.
Question from Quibbly. Should there be a jamming ability that lets you stop information spread of trust at cost of locking out airstrikes in the zone?
So
idea, actually.
That is something that I've wondered about, and I want to see how the first builds go for civilian evacuation, because I've thought about having zone edicts outside of the martial law, where you could basically have a pro and a con, similar to Stellaris, for like employing like a certain kind of like thought process to a zone, but you get a pro and a con where like, units are cheaper, but they are less accurate, or like little silly stuff like that. But it could be also geared towards reputation, where it's like you have initiatives that increase your reputation tick, but you lose something else in the zone. Like it takes up more power, little stuff like that. I want to wait and see how the first build of civilian evacuation goes, because I don't want to keep adding. So Our goal is to get to the point of those five stages going into next Friday, and then at that point, see what feels like it's still needed, kind of like the doctrines, where it's like, okay, do we feel like we need to add like an edict system to the zone so that way you can do kind of what you're suggesting, Quibbly, where there are temporary cons and pros that you assign to a zone as a whole, and that way it's like you can use that to benefit, like, oh well, people will move faster in these zones, or they, I don't know, different things that could curb infection, but they don't hit your. It lowers the cost on martial law, but it increases the take of money. Little stuff like that is things that I want to look at. And just make it add a little more management and a little more simulation to the world. What else do we have for questions, Thurver?
Yep. Let's just... Morrow again. Will there be an event system? For example, civilians call for help over the radio in a certain area, and we need to send a squad to clear the area and evacuate a VIP to the evacuation zone. A timed mission. If you succeed, you get money, reputation, etc. If not, reputation decreases, and that triggers this some kind of problem.
I'm not considering that until after the rebuild's done. That's part of 1.4. So, the simplest way is that 1.3 is over, when the rebuild's over, and Pierce and Natalie are in. And then at that point, 1.4 is finishing the campaign and doing world events, which is basically like mini quests or mini events that you have you can't dictate when they start. It's like a helicopter crashes or a pack of dogs attack you in the street. Like 10-second, 20-second, 30-second quick mission scenarios, things that just would randomly occur in this kind of situation. So that is on my list. And it's also on like our roadmap website, but it's just something that's like, I'm not even including it in the rebuild, if that makes any sense. And it's like something that I want to focus on after I get everything from the legacy in solidified, and then I can have fun with little small systems like that. It's like I've been biding my time on adding Air Force units, and I've been biding my time on adding strategic resources, where it's like a gas station gives you gas, a police station gives you ammo, an ambulance or like medical trucks or whatever would give you like different supplies in the world that are finite. That's something that Dimitri's been on my ass about doing for years, but it's like we're waiting until everything else is solidified and the base is all good to go. And then basically like we're back to what we were before the rebuild and better. And then I can start adding new mechanics and systems like that would like kind of help give more replayability and would also help you plan out like, oh, well, if I go here, I know I don't have to build an ammo tent. If I go there, I know I don't have to build a medical tent because I can literally just use the passive pool of resources is at the hospital, So that's something that's very important to me to kind of squeeze in later down the line as we leave the rebuild. What else do we have for questions?
Yep. So we've got Imperial Guardsman, I think his name is, with these hand up.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me answer one question on YouTube, and then we're going to raise his thing. And then I see Phoenix with his hand up as well. So on YouTube, Alpha Legion asked, or I think he said, a small tweak that clear up confusion for players would be to change the cop faction name to local authorities, maybe. I know in previous stream, someone talked about it unless you plan on dividing it more. So I refer to him as Pierce because that's just the name of the faction leader. When things are said and done and we get their faction logo designed and we put them in the game, they'll have a more official name, like whether it just be the abbreviation of their police department plus PD, like RPD, RPD or something like that. Like something like that where it's like, I'm just referring to them as that because I know the faction leader's name, but like that's not their faction name. I either refer to them as Pierce or I refer to them Pierce's group or the police faction, but when we get to that point of implementing them, I'll have an official name drawn up. That's more of like what you expect, what you're talking about. I think Mayo at Monkey asked, carrying capacity and life bar over the bus's special commands. Okay, I can agree with that. For what Mayo Monkey just said. Yeah, that's basically what I'm planning on. Is moving everything that can be clickable in the bottom right, and then making like the vitals and the other information be what you click on, just like a CERC unit on the map. Because it's almost like a design language that we're breaking, just for the sake of ease of use. Because it's quicker to do it that way than design the UI at the bottom right. But we need to just kind of cut that down and just get that streamlined. So let's bring up Imperial Guardsman. Hello.
All right, let's see if this worked this time.
Okay.
All right. My question was... oh, can you hear me double?
I can hear you once. You're good.
Okay. My question was, I looked at the security guard picture. It looks very nice, but how do you protect the civilians from gas clouds, for example, if they are within a gas cloud area?
That's a good question. They're probably all gonna die.
Because I was like
yeah.
thinking of an upgrade for those locations that potentially are in those zones, have those respiratory masks that
Yeah.
the places get ready to give out in case of that.
Let me check something. Let me write that down. And then I'm going to basically regroup with you on that later next week because you figure technically you probably shouldn't be building a civilian evacuation center next to a gas tower. But I can see where you're coming from in terms of basically allowing that by like, okay, like at least it buys you some time. So your camp isn't immediately irradiated.
Because I was
It'd be
thinking to like buy time for the civvies and try to how do you say it, minimize casualties to the infected.
Yeah. Well, Zero, what were you going to say real fast?
It'd be funny
To what? Not having a gas mask? You're
to
horrible.
build them in the gas tower.
My God.
In the range of it'd be hilarious.
You guys are horrible.
It'd be a great laugh.
Well, God damn. Well, let me think about that. We have the gas mask available. As far as I know, by default, they already have the gas mask that they put on, because they do get the same. Like you saw it for the militia where they put on their gas mask when in the gas zones. We just haven't set it up. We haven't set it up so every individual instance has, because we haven't gotten to that point of doing that level of playtesting, because we haven't we haven't thought to build a gas tower next to a civilian evacuation center, because we're like, well, if you do that, you're kind of screwing yourself anyway, and so it was like one of those things where.
Yeah, so continue.
Let me think about that. Let me think about that, and let me talk to a couple people about that, because I'm pretty sure the default gas mask will just be fine because I've already seen them working. But
yeah,
because I guess you have a point. That would be an interesting upgrade.
Yeah, because the thing is that the gas towers have a large area of effect once they expand.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you build it far away from the area,
yeah,
I'm afraid that sometimes it might expand so far that it actually gets within the area of gas effect.
Yeah. Okay, let me write that down, and I'm gonna put that on our list for something to look into when we're wrapping up civilian evacuation. Because one of the last things we're gonna do is we get the base run, and then we're gonna start looking at the upgrades and getting those in there, and then just kind of playing the first version of it, and then seeing what else needs it. Like utility items, like you're saying, are good ideas. I'm just a little bit careful about adding too much in at this very moment. But like you figure, but that makes sense. I can understand where you're coming from. So I wrote that down. So gas. Because like right now by default they already get that. It's just visually the other 9 don't have it on their face. So let me look into that. And then do you have any other questions?
Not the question, but after this podcast, do you have time to speak for 5 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because I have something to show you.
Okay, works for me. Okay,
Yep.
so Alpha Legion, thanks for the $10 on YouTube. You're a G. I hearted that. Okay, so let me move Phoenix up so he can speak if. And then we're going to jump up on some questions for Discord.
Howdy.
What's up?
So I got one question. Will the militia fight each other?
No. Militia are only hate you and hate the infected.
Copy that. That was my only question.
Oh, okay.
That's a
Okay,
good question.
yeah, it works. I mean, it's fine because I didn't really explain that either. So like, you figure it's just like that level of simulation is something that I'm saving for dynamic civilian groups. Militias are more of fire or forget groups kind of deal. So we're like, that's not their design goal. More so, they're like the rebels from Total War. They don't fight anyone else. They just fight you for just running your colony horrible.
No, the rebels in Total War fight everyone.
Well, not if like you don't attack them, right?
No, they fight. They're aggressive with everyone. Everyone's at war with them.
They never attacked me.
It's because not 9 times out of 10 we play on a difficulty where they don't attack you.
Oh well, that's probably why then. Regardless, it's not.
Their
it's not
logic
the-
also their logic also focuses on building and sustaining their own settlement that they've captured.
Well, I'm talking about the groups that spawn in when you first have an uprising, like those groups, because I always see them immediately run to the one settlement, and then typically they always get their ass beat. But I'm talking on that onset where they're like a vicious dog, like they're there to spawn in, attack that one colony or that one settlement, and then 9 out of 10 times they're probably dead or about to be dead from just attacking that one facility. So that's at least the design goal that I'm going for like the militia, where but yeah, I don't know. That could be interesting, but for right now, I think that's outside the scope of their goal or their role per se. What's another question we got, Duravar?
We got Feed the Need.
Okay.
Will you guys add claimable vehicles into the map? For example, a helicopter at the airfield, but no fuel, so it's not a quick and easy way to take and use. That way, the player has to work for it.
Hold on. Let me write that down for something potentially in the future. But like, you figure, I don't think now. That's not planned for the time being. But I'll put that on a wish list card. So neutral vehicles. Okay, I wrote that down. Gas required. Okay, what else do we have for questions? What do we have for time?
Is it on Discord?
We'll give it another 3 minutes. We'll go for 1 hour and 40 minutes today. That way I don't blab for longer. Too long today. 3 minutes. Bang your questions. Let's go.
Give him some hard ones. The ones that he finds hard to answer.
Lord Jesus Christ.
Let's
Let's see. Let me scroll up and see if I'm missing anything.
Here we go. Here's a difficult question for you from me, Rob. What
Okay.
kind of coffee do you drink?
I hate you. Colombian.
You drink a Colombian coffee.
Yeah.
That's never heard of that before.
Why?
I've never heard of a Colombian coffee.
Hold on. I'm going to look at the fucking box now while someone writes a question. Hold on. It's called Colombian medium roast. I don't know. I mean, it's a medium
I
roast.
just have I have your typical Nestle.
Oh, because you're a basic bitch.
Yes, because I'm a basic bitch. Yeah.
Let's see. So for a
All
feed
right,
the
so
needs
we got
question. Oh yeah, you go.
I was about to say the same thing. Feed the needs question is: will you be adding tier 4 wall upgrades to allow troops on top of walls? That's a recurring question. That one.
Yeah, that's gonna come eventually, but that's backlogged right now. There's some things where basically I had to prioritize a little more heavily than I'd like, based off of how long it took for us to get to this point in the rebuild, where I was like tier 4 walls got delayed, like the guard tower atlas. It's something that I want to put back in, but I had to keep my schedule. So I was like, okay, we need to get the civilian evacuation. We need to get these other major tidbits in. So those are things that are just on the wayside for the time being until I can kind of allocate Dimitri to get back on those. So potentially after he finishes the remainder of the civilian evacuation assets, there's some optimizations that I need to have him do relating to blood pooling, because you figure there are improvements that we need to make from like a replication and a spawning in a performance standpoint, where it's like instead of constantly spawning blood on the floor, we need to like have like a special shader or material effect that basically adds blood dynamically to the same pool. So then that way we can like have large pools of blood and not have a bunch of individual sprites, but like one sprite that grows based off of blood being accumulated to it. So it's something that I want to look into. So there's a couple other extra things that like would help out on the performance and the visuals of the game. And then those kind of things are like backlog items that I have to kind of squeeze in there later on the line. But they're still good nonetheless. They're on the list though.
Like Oob.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Oob?
Ooh,
Oob Ultimate Battle Simulator?
what?
They have blood pooling.
Oh, they
That-
do.
Yeah.
Is it a lot?
That'd be cool. That'd be pretty. Oh shit! Yeah, you can create like entire oceans.
Is it dynamic?
Yeah, each kill generates a little bit of blood,
Yeah, because we need.
and it will
I need to go.
it
in
will
that
like
direction.
drain down hills.
Yeah, because that's the biggest thing is I want to go in that direction from a visual standpoint, but also a performance standpoint, because the amount of churn and the amount of spawning and destroying that occurs for like all the decals on the ground, we rate limit them, and we also limit how many are allowed to spawn. But it would help lower spec computers just to keep up. Everything is locally predicted, so blood isn't replicated or tracked online. But it's just more so, it would just help the appearance of the game, and it would also just help the performance. Because then instead of spawning 50 blood particles, you're spawning one blood particle, and all you're doing is making it larger and a little bit more like, I guess you could say ravenous or like consuming of the area per se. And it just, the effect will look better. And you can do that with the combination of Niagara and a data interface. So that's something that me and Dimitri are looking into later at the end of the month. It's like an auxiliary item just to kind of improve performance, but also improve the visuals of the game. Yeah, what else do you have for questions?
Average Jenga. I don't know if this has been asked before, but will there be a centralized build queue that will dynamically send free engineers to build?
Build queue. Huh. Let me think about how is there a context of a game you're thinking of for a like a build queue like that? Oh, that was the stupid. That was YouTube, Daisy. I didn't remove your comment. I undid it. I don't know why I did that. Like someone wrote "Woo, I love you guys!" exclamation mark on YouTube, and YouTube decided to auto mute him.
Why?
I don't know. I'm looking at it right now, and it's like the message is grayed out, and it won't let me. What the fuck? Yeah, I apologize about that. I'm gonna have to log into the website and figure out why it's being retarded. Yeah, his message doesn't even show up. Oh, Nightbot didn't like that he was spam capping. That's annoying. Okay, I'm gonna have to go look into Nightbot because Nightbot didn't like that you wrote your thing in all caps. Let me fix that so that way it doesn't happen again. I apologize about that. Back to the question. We love your excitement and your encouragement. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the stupid fucking bot. Okay, so then what was the question again? I totally got like derailed by that. I'm trying to fix that in the back end right now.
Build queues, I think.
Build queue. Okay, so why don't I remember that from Supreme Commander? So was it zone based?
Yeah. No, it wasn't zone based. It was you could line up several different buildings to. So like, say you had like generators, you could click and drag, and that would create a shitload of them.
Yeah.
Or you can shift and click on different buildings, and it would create like a queue of buildings.
But it's not the same thing as a queue.
Yeah, each engineer had its own queue for that. I'm not sure exactly what they're going. Command and Conquer. I don't remember Command and Conquer ever doing that.
I'm gonna turn off excess caps. There we go. I turned it off. Okay, so can you who asked that? Can you send me a video of what you're talking about on YouTube? And I will like link me a video in general comms and I will look into it because you figure I don't remember that system from Supreme Commander. It's probably because I didn't use it and I was a basic bitch and I just did my control move orders in Supreme Commander where I was just like build, and I just You know what I mean? Like I just control clicked and just did it that way. I never did the master build queue thing. I didn't even know that was in the system. I knew that they had like the whole dragging patrol points in that game, which is cool as shit. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'd like to see that in action so I can understand it, and then see if that would fit within like the scope of the game. Because I'm generally curious more than anything. It does sound cool, but yeah. See if you can find something, or a cat. If you can find a video later on, someone just send me that in general comms and tag me, and I'll take a serious look at it and see if it's something that we can look into, even during a polished pass later down the line. So Maverick asked the question: will there be a layer of visual infection in red zones or gas areas, e.g., prototype? Right now, from what I have earmarked with Dimitri, is we want to go in the direction of making the gas towers the visual like indicator of like infection creep, and then have the smaller ones have small localized clusters around them. Let me think. It's on our list. We have the assets made. It's more so just a manpower issue. There's so many things going on right now that like those are nice to haves, but not mission critical. So give us a couple months. Give us till around. Let me look at my calendar. Because April, next week or two, civilian evacuation is done. Another week or two after that, it's operator polish and general AI stuff for the. So April was basically civilian evacuation, operator, infected AI. So April's gone. And then you figure at that point, May is going to be the LCAC, the LHA6, whatever bleeds over from April. And then starting to set the foundation for anything else that might be missing, small quality of lives that feel like they're still needed, which is basically just getting with the community on that one. And then sometime around May or June is when we would start Pearson Nadley. Because like me and Derek still want to go in there, and we need to make sure that these mechanics and systems have time to breathe, different people to play them, get a feel for them, and give us feedback. Find like, hey, I want this quality of life, that quality of life. So I would say that like I got to get with Dimitri on a couple of things, because he's been telling me that we need to update engine versions to 5.6 or 5.7 for their PCG upgrades. So then that way he can make that growth procedural to where it grows dynamically every time you play the game. So it's not like a pre-placed asset. It's more of like rules in terms of how the creep is allowed to grow, and then it grows differently every single time you play based off of the environment and where the pods and gas towers are. So let me cook on that one and get back to you in a couple months. But that is very high on our fucking list. Like, to me, the game ain't fucking done until we get that and everything else I've been talking about. Like, the whole point of this year is like, this quarter and next quarter is the rebuild, and then getting far beyond what we've ever accomplished, and then transitioning over to world events and like starting to work on the campaign and small little quality of life and like stuff that you're mentioning, where like there are things that we've put off because they were nice to haves, but like there were more pressing things like what we're doing right now. So just give us a little more time for that. The engineers do have a queue, Quibbly. But again, if he shows me a video, I will take a serious look at that. And YouTube has a metric shit ton of questions. So let me check that. What is Dusty Gaming Universe asks? Wondering on a possible end idea. Say you're getting overrun, it's gone bad, a possible bad victory nuclear option. That is basically something that we're kind of saving for the end, is putting in some kind of loss condition to basically say like, hey, if you lose, they just bomb everything. So yeah, that is a good idea. Darcy asked, he said he tells all his friends about the game, rooting for us for 1.0. I love the feel of your game. We really do appreciate you. Like, you figure that is like the one thing we want to hear, is that people are having fun, they enjoy the game, and that you figure like, it's like what we're doing. Because that's what we want at the end of the day. People will just have fucking fun. Play the game and have a good time. So you figure, let's see. I'm not even gonna answer. I don't even. That's a meme question, so I don't even know what that is. Res, is a girlfriend mission critical or nice to have? Okay. Anyway, that question is interesting. So Phoenix asked the question: will the campaign have co-op? That would be the goal. I mean, that's the whole reason why we put all of that instrumental time in for rebuilding the game and supporting multiplayer. So yeah, that's going to be a major design. That's why parts of the campaign have to be changed and modified and fixed, because the plan that we had 5 years ago is no longer the plan now. And mechanics and systems that have come in the last couple of years have shaken up the foundation, where it's like the book is the starting point, but realistically it's just that. We have to kind of like build on it when we get to that point later in the year. But yeah, that's another reason why it's like I wanted to go so gung-ho on the operators and the RTS, is in that way we can have campaign missions where it's like just the operators or just the RTS, and you can tell a story from different perspectives and, you know, be unique a little bit in that regard of like, it's not like every other campaign where it's like you load in, build a base, load in, build a base, load in, build a base. Like, it's fucking boring for a campaign. Like, let's actually like have some progression. Let's have a story. Let's have some theming, you know. And I always say this, but like my golden standard of a game that I'm kind of looking at for like when we're getting to the point of like everything else is done and we're like done adding new mechanics and systems in the pandemic, so I can focus, our entire team can focus their efforts on the campaign, is what's that game called? Dark Descent. Aliens Dark Descent is kind of like the golden standard of kind of what I want to aim for from like a campaign, where it's like completely different. Then I don't want it to be pandemic, but a world map. That's fucking lame. So the biggest thing I want to do is have it to where it's kind of like Dark Descent, where it's like you launch from missions, you're doing kind of what XCOM does, and your base of operations, or your hub per se in that mode is the hub. That's why we built out that hub. So certain decisions were made to where when we get later down the line, there's a reason why Alcatraz is so developed and so fleshed out cutscenes for different divisions and sections where you can go and you can do upgrades and build your team and send them out and deploy them on missions. That's why Alcatraz is so developed, and that's why we put months into it, which we got some flack on for, why people were asking us why we designed it so intricate. Well, I was planning for the damn future. So you figure it's just the thought process there in terms of basically just kind of executing on the project. So I'm going to take a couple more questions, then we're going to wrap up. So what do we got here? What do we got? Duravar, pick a couple last questions. Pick 2 questions.
Hang on. Let's have a look. What do we got? Oh, just fixing up my lizard.
Oh, okay.
So, playable Chelsea faction is a long time ago. Okay. Someone asked about a playable Chelsea faction.
That's going to be something like 2026 or high. I think that's like 2027 at this point.
I was going to say we're in 2026.
It's like, 2027. Like that's like something that's like after we leave early access. That's like a bonus mission where it's like I've mentioned in the past, the factions are programmed in that way, but it's not just flipping a switch because there's other things we have to do. So where it's like, that's something I want to do after we leave early access. But I want to do it. I want to figure out a way of facilitating that. What else have we got?
Here we go. There's a question about order of movements and movement cues. Holding shift, for example, tells a unit to go from one spot to another. While holding shift, you can... Oh, hold on. You can click additional areas so units follow a path of movements you want them to travel. So kind of like movement cues. Yeah, like proper movement cues.
Where is that?
Feed the Need helped us out by
holding shift.
Copying that one out.
Holding the shift, you can. Let me copy that, and then I'm assuming that's from Supreme Commander as well.
Yeah, that's from any RTS game. All RTS games have movement orders.
Yeah, I know that, but like you
Huge movement
figure.
orders.
Oh shit! I know what you're talking about. I'm sorry, it's slow moment. Yeah. That's planned. That's something we have to do. You're right. What else do we have for questions before we wrap it up?
That's it,
One
I
last
believe.
one.
Ah, hang on, Maverick. Did you find interesting idea, especially related to stratification of gas area? And he's added an
Stratification?
image.
What does that mean?
Not sure what stratification of gas area means.
I don't know what that means.
Not quite sure. Yeah.
I think he means having tiered levels of, like basically like having like, I guess you can say like an epicenter where you take more gas
I
damage.
think he's talking about a higher concentration of like infection rate the closer you get.
Oh, hey, Kat.
So
when
it
did you
kind
get in here?
of burns.
I,
Put me up here.
I snuck her in.
Basically, it's just like as you get closer, it burns through your filter faster to the center, is my presumption.
I'm assuming. Do people still think the gas towers are OP? I'm just generally curious.
I can't speak.
That almost gives the feeling that they're underpowered.
I mean, my only complaint right now is that you can't get to them because of the spikes, but that was getting tuned anyway, from what I understood. So,
Yeah,
you know,
quickly fix that. And equipment for Hawkins. Hawkins, Leon, fix it. Fuck, I'm retarded. Yeah, he's been
once I
tweaking
test
that.
I'll probably be giving him feedback.
Did you? I saw you had met with him a couple days ago. Like, how did that go?
Oh, it's been going good. Like, we've been working on balancing stuff. Like the tow Humvee is now better. Dealing with like the juggernauts and kind of just slowly trying to work through. They're one of the biggest pain points still, I think, for most people.
Is the Ajax tow or just the Juggernaut as a whole?
No, the juggernaut. Like when I was playing with my boyfriend last night, he was crashing out with the jug spam like late game.
Oh God, how bad was it?
Well, we had 7 attack us at the same time on our front line.
How'd it go?
That's too easy.
Well, we survived.
Okay.
We did survive, and we were able to repel them.
But
That's
There needs-
the best
there
I can
needs to be-
say. There were a lot of casualties.
oh, so it was painful. It was a hard fought victory.
Oh, absolutely.
There needs to be 12 juggernauts sent. all at
Actually,
one
It was
no,
a
time.
Pyrrhic victory.
Oh
There we
God,
go.
no! Because what was it? I think Morrow was the one that was telling me about it. Where it's like sometimes in like day 10 plus, you would start to get like a crazy amount of juggernauts. I had to put I put a clamp to that. So like you should never get more than 10, because it was
Sounds
bad.
about right, yeah.
It was bad. Like you figure they were getting like 20 juggernauts, and it was like, oh my God, you're probably dead.
Oh, you know what? I actually did think of a quick question, if you don't mind me sneaking this in.
What?
So, is there going to be a timer on when pods are built with how long, like, they have to sit there until they can start spawning infected?
There
'Cause
is
I've literally
one.
had it where
There is one, but we don't show it well enough. The problem is that they have a build time. In Legacy, we did that stupid scale up animation. In the rebuild, I need to get with Dimitri when he has some free time, and we need to make some kind of visual effect on the pods, like they're growing or like some kind of like bleed effect. So that way it visually shows that they're not able to produce. Because gas towers are about 10 seconds, and I think the infection pods are around 5 to 8 seconds. And that we haven't made it longer because then it wouldn't be obvious to people of like what was going on with them, like why they just kind of sit there and don't react. I need to get with him from a visual standpoint and just relay that to y'all and increase those times, because I think that they need to be like more like 20 or 30 seconds. So then that way, like if they get through, you have some time to to kill them. You know what I mean?
No, for sure, yeah, because I had one spawn in front of me the other day, and then a jug popped up within like that 10-second window. And I was like, oh, well, all right.
Yeah, I know, literally, because like you figure the code disallow. They're not allowed to spawn there until it's built. So, but the problem is like the build time's like I think it's like 5 or 8 seconds. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but it's short. And the gas tower, Michael increased that to like 10 seconds. I don't remember exactly how long, but it's like you can ask Leon. Leon will be able to tell you for like if you because he can share his screen on Discord and just show you the numbers. And then you guys can always just go back and forth if you feel like they need to be changed now rather than later. Just keep in mind that, like, obviously you'll get some instances where you're just kind of staring at a gas tower and it'll be like 10 or 15 seconds so they're allowed to start producing units. But if you guys feel from a balance, because I'm pretty much leaving this in Leon, Michael, and y'all's court, to be like, okay, this is kind of a problem.
Y'all's.
This is happening a fucking lot. It's making the game boring, or like, what's the word? It becomes like a fucking whack-a-mole. Where like, you want the fun whack-a-mole, you don't want like it feels like a job whack-a-mole. Where you know what I mean? Like there's a fun, delicate balance where it's like they have a breakthrough and they get in and it's your fault, and you have to like,
so like,
yeah.
well, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
What are you saying?
Well, so like it's less that they spawn even like quickly. It's more like the level of stuff they spawn. You know, it's those heavy infected waves or a juggernaut or like the spike turrets immediately starting to pop up or spawn, like, you know, within that 10 to 15 20-second window.
Yeah.
Like if that was tiered out, is that something that's doable right now, or is that not implemented in a way besides like it hasn't been coded? Because I know you're talking about visuals, but is like the code base there for that?
Let me think about that. So you're talking about having a delay before spine throwers are allowed to be built after the
Like
base.
stone throwers, right? Or like a jug. So, you know, sure, okay. You know, infected basics can spawn after 15 seconds, right? And then, you know, 30 seconds, a minute, like police or the blow up guys. And then, you know, get what I'm saying? Like it tiers up over time.
So so as it stands right now,
Yep.
the spawning of the units themselves is intentional in terms of basically like if it's on that day, it's open season for them to request reinforcements from that pod or to basically launch attacks from it. Now the problem is that in the last 2 weeks, I snuck in a fix that improved their reliability of calling in reinforcements, which probably made the game really fucking hard. But the problem,
I've noticed.
yeah, because the problem is that you figure before, when you were in A, when you were in A and they were in D, and there were infection pods that were closer in say B, they would have to call for help in D. I made it to where they can call help from B, or even C. They'll get the closest zones and then automatically like batch it. So they'll split up their parties and hit you from multiple sides as close as possible. But there was a bug there where it was like they weren't properly doing their distance comparisons. So I fixed that, but the con is it made the game fucking hard as shit when you actually attack or do something in the mid to late game. Now, I'm open to the delays of building the defense pods because you figure that might be a little cheesy, but the better solution for that might just be increasing the build time and taking the L. The people just don't understand why the pod isn't producing yet. And then I'll have to just talk to Dimitri about getting some kind of effect made because technically you don't have the same effect and you don't have to worry about like the trickle down effect of so many other things like changing. Is that if you just increase how long it takes for them to build the infection pod, then you get what you want for the defense pods because it gives you more time to react and get there, you know? Because you still know the structure is there, but it can't do anything and it can't defend itself. So it's entirely reliant on like other people to protect it that they brought there.
Yeah, I would definitely look at the spike turrets too still because they respawn relatively quick as well. So.
Oh,
yeah,
you're talking about like when you're actively hitting one in that moment and like they'll just
Oh.
pop up immediately like,
Yeah.
okay.
If you have time afterwards, I don't know like what you're doing after meeting with Imperial. We can talk some balance stuff, but you probably want a break too. So whatever.
We could try it. Worst case, we can because we want to get Leon. Realistically, we need to get at least Leon and Michael in that conversation, so they're in the know. So then that way they can know what would change, what the thought process is, and then that way everyone's on the same page. So he's in Germany. He's sleeping right now. His ass is out. So you figure we can either try and get him on Monday, or we can get Michael. I know Michael. No, he's at a dinner. So yeah, you're fucked. Okay, wait till Monday. Because like you figure Michael's at a dinner, Leon's sleeping, and they're the ones that are in charge of balance. So I don't like to go in there and step on their toes. So you figure we'll grab one of them on Monday, and then we can basically do an overview of seeing like, and we can try and get other people on the public Discord in as well. People that are watching on YouTube, people that are like watching in post. On Monday, we'll be on Discord sometime during the day in the Playtesters channel. And we'll probably just be talking over the game balance. Or we will be talking about the game balance.
what if you don't mind, I'm just gonna say if anybody has like opinions that they want to have added and you don't want to put it in a public thing, feel free to just shoot me a DM and then I can kind of collate it together when we have our meeting.
Yep. So then that way, so there you go. Tag Cat on Discord if you want to basically get your input in, or if you want to basically DM her, because you figure we'll have like a public venue on Monday with the community to basically see if there's any other concerns or things people want to bring up, and we'll listen to what everyone has to say, because like you figure it's in our best interest to just kind of get the balance to a point where it's fair and fun, but it's hard. Yeah, so we'll be doing that. So again, if you guys want to come, I'll put an event up. Once I confirm with Leon or Michael on Sunday, then I'll put an event up on Discord so people can RSVP. And then that way we can time it to where people know, like, it's not just, oh, I missed it by 10 minutes.
Well,
So
so my only thought on that though is the changes that were made, right? Like the balances still haven't been pushed out to.
it's only been you and some
public.
other people that have just been testing it for me in secret. So you figure,
Yeah. So most people though won't have the updated feelings, so they'll probably be telling us.
well,
stuff
then
that's
we might just
moving
have to
in.
give them a password on that day and make a separate branch. Because you
Okay,
figure
okay.
that build is not ready for even experimental because of the issues I told you about, where it's like,
Yeah.
it's volatile. Like literally, like when I was playing earlier, all my shit got rolled in because that militia group showed up. Because Leon hasn't
Yeah.
had enough time to balance their weapons yet.
Well,
So
we could do a public play test, right? And if you had a separate one with those systems turned off, and
Are
then
you-
see how people feel in the moment with those changes, maybe.
let me think for a second. Is there anything else in there that's volatile? No, we can't do that yet. There's one issue that Quivly discovered in the supporters channel. There's another reason why I don't want to release it publicly. Because some of the faction manager changes that happened to the allied units, it looked like it caused an instance where sometimes the fog of war can fail to hide units that are enemies
Oh yeah,
of
I
you.
saw that post.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's a repercussion of expanding the faction manager for allies, and it created a new bug where literally you have what's the thing we can see, wall hack. You basically have a wall hack. So you figure we need to basically hunt that down and rectify it. So you figure like that's something that we're really working on. That's another reason why I didn't release an experimental today, because I was like, I need to figure out where that's coming from. Anything else you want to throw in there?
No, if you have time after meeting with Imperial, I have a few things, but no big deal. Otherwise, we can partner tomorrow.
Oh shit! Yeah, I hear you. Okay, I'll get Maverick, and then we got to wrap this up.
Hi, Dark.
Hello.
So, so just to punctualize what I wrote before, my intervention is related to the effect of the tower on the distance. So the more you are distant, the less is the effect. So, for example, if the timer is 3 minutes on the max distance, in the inner it's like we decrease to 1 minute to 30 seconds without any power up. So I put a topic that was gas tower ROP with like 2,000, not 200 replies. And you have a look in it.
So I did look it over just now, and my question would be: is that do you still feel like the gas towers are OP, or like what's the thought process
No,
here?
no. The gas tower are not OP. It was like a provocation. They are not so meaningful. I think it's too easy to put them down, or just annoying, like the whack-a-mole game.
So your
so
your thing is adding those levels of severity, so then that way, like there's some you skin in the game where like if you're going to go in and kill them, you have to get close, and to get close, you're going to have to risk higher levels of containment
yeah,
above
you
what you
can
would
find.
normally get.
Yeah, for example, in the inner zone, maybe enemy are more powerful. There are some kind of different structure, more hard to destroy. So give more depth to the gameplay around the tower.
Let me talk to Michael and Leon about that. But I do like the idea of it, because now that you're explaining it, I can see where you're coming from. Because in that way, it does make it to where, like, at least on the outer edges, Like if you're on the edge, it's not going to kill you as quickly. So it's a little more rewarding. Well, not rewarding, but it's a little more forgiving. And then as you're going deeper and deeper and deeper, you could scale it up a little bit more. Have a
Exactly.
multiplier.
Maybe you can work on less tower, but one tower more resistant and with more radius. But the radius will be with lesser effect, the more the distance.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna share that thread in the channel.
There are a lot of ideas inside the thread.
Let's see if I can find that thread again. Okay, so I'm gonna share that thread on YouTube, and I'm gonna share that thread on Discord. And if other people want to throw their opinion into the ring for what he's saying and just other ideas they might have on the gas tower, feel free. And I'm gonna bring this up to them on Monday and see what they think, and then we're gonna, see what else is discussed in that thread and kind of go from there. But at face value, I do like the idea. I mean, I don't know, Durvar, what do you think as a devil's advocate? Is he dead? Did the lizard eat him?
It's not a bad idea.
Do you hate it? Love it?
Yeah.
What?
It's not bad. It's not a bad idea at all, actually.
But
Give me time to think of a butt.
okay. Putting him on the spot. I think he was fucking fighting his lizard.
I'm fighting my because I'm trying to feed her. She's trying to go into brumation too early.
I don't know what that means.
She's trying to go for a very long sleep too early.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you so much, Maverick.
Thank you for the attention.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm gonna post that there. I posted it on YouTube, and then, oh Lord, the amount of men you've sacrificed for the Juggernaut. They did their service. Will the containment zones be displayed on the map? Yes, we will look into getting something like that in there in the next couple of months. Like that is on our list. I know that was something we had in Legacy, and I need to get Derek to look into that from a UI standpoint. That is something that we are aiming to get in there, hell or high water, before the rebuild's over. Let's see. Okay, I think that pretty much wraps up our questions. Yes. Okay, so again, thank you guys so much for coming this week. I would just say to basically just bear with us as we're kind of going into next week of just getting the buses to a point where we're happy with them around Monday, Tuesday. And then doing Monday, Tuesday for the militia, adding in their sub AI and their routines and their personalities based off of their guns. And then our goal would be sometime around Tuesday, Wednesday is to transition over into the intake and just start getting that situated. So ideally next Friday, we'll have something you guys can play. Friday, Saturday, we'll have something you can play. We'll play it by ear because you figure shit can change, things can break, things can happen. But we're going to do our damnness to get something y'all can play by next Saturday. And as always, if you want to support development, check out our Patreon, check out our support packs on Steam. They all help. We're self-funded. We all work day jobs, and this is the passion project for us. And again, we greatly appreciate the patience that you guys have had with us going through the rebuild, coming here, seeing what we're working on, giving us your feedback, telling us what you like, what you hate. It all is valuable. It all informs us and lets us know where are we doing good or where are we doing bad. And just being honest with us is always great. We don't want yes men. We just want to hear what people think so we can just get the job done and just get it over the finish line. Like whichever one it wants at the end of the day. Might disagree on the tactics, but everyone here obviously cares about the game. So again, you guys have a great weekend, and I will see you guys.